willing to provide us with so much that we can offer the community that we're not paying for. So, you know, that 1 hour a month using the room, that's well worth what it would cost the city to bring somebody in to teach that technician class.
Beautiful.
Sorry, I
That's
forgot to talk
perfect.
about that part of it.
So again, just pointing back to those original 2 points of we're looking to amplify. How can we have more? Invite them in, make it achievable for them. I already forgot the second one, so I'll have Travis now come up, and he's going to be talking a little bit again about how we can use our committees to understand what some of our needs are and what opportunities might be out there.
Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me to kind of give a presentation today. I am Travis Oren, and I have the privilege of serving as the Cultural Services Superintendent for the city. The team and I overlook the city events, community events, our event tourism, seniors, the senior center, the community center, veterans, and our arts. So tonight, I'm going to kind of just touch on some of the restructure, as mentioned earlier, of some of our advisory committees. But tonight, we're going to be talking about 3 specific committees. That would be the Cultural Affairs and Arts Committee, the Senior Advisory Committee, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. So, same goal. The goal for our committees are to be the bridge between city leadership and the general public, our Maricopa residents. But we want to kind of give them a focus and allow them to really have a lot of insight and kind of do some of our heavy lifting when it comes to researching and making decisions and shaping decisions for the city and prioritizing things for the city. At the same time, creating clear communication and also champions of what we have planned for the city. So, you know, what will we ask them to do? Well, with the assistance of a staff liaison, the committees will be challenged to, and I'll just read off some of these bullet points here. Thank you, Quinn. Attain feedback from the public on plans, policies, and programming. Conduct research on potential solutions. Engage with Maricopa residents in conversations and open up further communication channels. Provide recommendations to the city council and staff based on community input and their expertise in these areas. And then hopefully this will promote transparency. That means by keeping the community informed about our plans and some of our strategic goals. And then also, again, not them just being advocates, but creating advocates for our city initiatives and our strategic priorities. So I kind of want to just briefly put this into practice and kind of give a scenario of how this would play out. So if we just focus on one group right here, we're going to take the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and we're going to give them a hot topic and see how they could help us. Like you said, I think it was Council Member Nora that said, if it's not city council or staff or who's making decisions, well, this is when these committees are going to be a absolute great resource to us, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be doing that deep research. If my team were to do that, it would be tasked with that, that would take hours and hours to do that. But having this committee members as resources, and they're really our ears on the street to really dig deep into these subjects and to get valuable, accurate information, that's going to help us make some good decisions and prioritize what we need to. So again, looking at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, we'll have them dig deep into the topic of teens. Everybody's favorite subject, right? Teens. I got 2 at home, and I can tell you right now, teens are hard to please. I'm going to tell you, if I pick something for my teens right now, what dad picks is not cool. And what I thought was cool as a teen, they're not doing that anymore. And teens are ever changing by generation to generation. So having this research provided by our committees and letting them do the real work, you know, they would basically dive in and do that research. Now, how do they do this research? Or again, it's engaging in the community. We can look for our resources locally. I see Be Awesome in the crowd right now. They're the ones dealing with generations of teens. So these advisory members can basically go to them, do research, not only Be Awesome, find other nonprofits or church groups, use the school as a resource, school counselors, or how about this, things that we can't get to, actual teams themselves, actually going to the people that are going to benefit and utilize these centers or programmings that we try to expand, right? So that would be a great resource to us. So I hope that answers a little bit of where we kind of see that shaping and the focus there. Well, I know this all sounds great, and again, trying to serve Maricopa more effectively and efficiently, but what will we need to do to kind of get rolling on these processes? Well, the next steps are pretty clear. Oh, go back there. The next steps are pretty clear. We would have to identify some staff liaisons. So I got the privilege to go ahead and announce that right now. The liaison for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee is my fellow superintendent for recreation, David McLeish. And I hate to break the news to the other two, the Senior Advisory and the Cultural Arts and Committee, but you're reuniting with our friend again here. That's myself. I get to serve again with you guys, so you thought you got rid of me, but I'm back. I look forward to getting to work with you folks again and really diving deep and doing some fun stuff. So after we have notified that, we're going to ask for a code change. We're going to look to do a resolution with goals, and then we can start getting to work and launch this. So I'm here to answer questions, and preemptively, I think Councilmember Marsh, yes, Wild West Music Fest is April 4 to 6, and Leanne Rhines will be performing on Saturday. I hope I answered that question. But other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the new structure that we're presenting for committees.
What was the first answer, 4 to 6? What was that?
It's April 4 through 6.
Oh, April 4.
Yeah, April 4 to 6.
Okay.
Yes, Leanne
Oh,
Rhines
okay.
on Saturday, just to clarify again, make sure that's on record.
All right. Council, what questions do you have for Travis?
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to add a little bit to what Travis had mentioned about having a staff liaison will, yes, again, help them understand what we're doing. And when we're talking about them doing research, these liaisons will be helping them understand what kinds of questions we want to be answering or getting the answers to, what are our needs, and then when we say we have identified a need, when we go to look at what groups out there, what's preventing them from accomplishing that already right now? And if we say, we've already found in doing some of this, the answer was, I didn't know what the price was. And we told them, and they're like, oh, I'll start that next week. So it may be something as simple as that. Again, it may be them saying, I would need a room, I might need marketing. And that's where these staff liaisons will be working with them to understand what might be keeping them from that. Does the city have an opportunity to help them achieve that sustainability?
Councilmember Noor?
Yeah, Quinn, thank you. I really appreciate that because that was going to be one of my points is that I think the committees can serve as a great resource to help promote partnerships and find those groups, nonprofits, entities that can provide programming for the city and help let them know what's available and how the city can work with them. So I do love that we're adding that as one of the tenets of the committees. I also think Parks and Rec Committee should evaluate any privatization endeavors because while I do want to be informed as a council member and I don't like learning about things at the grocery store, so still do that, they are the Parks and Rec Committee. So they should definitely have input into should we go with X, Y, Z, ABC, whatever it should be. And I definitely think that I would like to see them have a role in that going forward for sure.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I totally agree. When we talk about them being advocates or community champions for us, it's a two-way street. Not only are they champion and kind of explaining what we have planned, but we're also hearing real intel, so it helps us to mold decisions that are effective and also efficient, not just, assuming things and things like that. So champion on both ways. So that is a great resource for us. That was a great point.
Perfect. Vice Mayor?
I'm just curious how you plan to interface with the existing structures within those organizations with the staff liaisons, and how does that look to you? How does that interface take place?
As far as structure with the staff liaisons, Councilman?
And with the existing organizations, there are there leaders, and they have vice chairs, chairs and vice chairs. They may even have other kind of structural organizations for their organization. How does the staff liaison interface it?
The staff liaison, as much as possible, be hands-off and allow the advisory committee, if I'm not mistaken, allow the advisory committees to operate as they are. The staff liaisons are more of a guide to make sure that we're prioritizing some of the focus groups and putting our efforts into the places that, we're trying to accomplish. So staff liaisons are more of a resource in addition as much as they are a resource to us. I hope that answered your question, sir.
Yeah, that's
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Did you have something to add, Quinn?
Yes, much as they functioned previously, not looking to supersede any of that current structure, as those committees already continue to run with their chairs and vice chairs, that they're able to turn and say, okay, what now from staff in this area? Can you please present to us what do you have, what do you need, what are you working on? What are we updating in these realms? What questions do you have for us? They're in the driver's seat. The staff liaison is there to help answer those questions and facilitate that conversation.
So Mayor, along
Yes.
that line, if I may, so I appreciate and I welcome that staff participation in that. But in the document that we did receive, there's a couple of places where the council liaison is actually removed. And so I want to make sure maybe we fix that a little bit. I'm looking specifically at the agenda process. The chair will work with staff liaisons to prepare the agenda, and council's been removed from that process. I would still like to retain that final say on what's on that agenda, if I can do that as a council member. And then secondly, under the goals section, prior to futures planning, staff liaisons with input from the committees will formulate, set goals and objectives. I also would like to be a part of that process. So I don't want to see these committees become staff committees. I still want to retain them under our purview. So if we can be careful a little bit with that language and make sure that we're still included there and have that final say, I'd recommend.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, good suggestions.
And we have, the more the merrier. And like I said, with the council members, I've had a chance to sit on the advisories as it is, and you guys are a great resource still. It just makes it even more so unified.
Agreed.
So
Yeah, and I'm excited about the partnership from the staff
equally
side.
excited, sir.
Be great.
Councilmember Marsh.
Travis, thank you for nailing this down. Working with you and your team over the past year, we've kind of been evolving the Senior Advisory Committee in this direction. So this just solidifies the plan and locks down our course to true north. It's really cool. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And then, with our team, we are all equally excited to get back to work and to really be a resource just as much as they're a resource to us. So thank you, Councilman.
Travis, the one question I have is in regards to your little flow chart and goals. So if you use this year as an example, when we get this committee code put into place, how do you see the goals for our committees currently after we get this in place? How do you see those goals being established? Is it staff and council liaisons working with the committees?
I think that's where we would look to make that decision later together. And I
Yes,
hope that's
okay.
what the main thing is. This is not an individual effort. This is a joint effort
Yes.
from everybody involved. And I
Perfect.
think that would be the best synergy. And like I said, we're just excited to get going on it and start working out those finer details.
Perfect. I'm excited about the staff liaison because although everybody's been working hard and doing their part, they're missing an element, and that is the staff liaison. So I'm excited about that. What I want to let council know, because we do have some open positions on our committees, please take this seriously in regards to, we are asking in some cases we have committee members who are working really hard. I mean, if you look at the Senior Advisory Committee and what they did for Senior Info Expo, they're working really hard. But in some cases, current members may not understand what all is expected of them, so consider that. And when you fill these seats, please consider that. Ask those questions if they're willing to participate in this way, because I think that's what's going to make these committees marvelous. So that's my request there.
I love that request. I couldn't agree more, Mayor.
Yep.
I got to
Vice
give you
Mayor?
your flowers too as well, Travis. You've really been there for us and then on our side of the committees as well.
It's really easy for me to look good with a great team, sir. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it for your kind words.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
to help us fill those vacancies on the committees, can we get some help on the city's website with sort of a job description?
Segue Quinn Canold.
Okay.
I'm also over communication, so absolutely. What our needs are, we'll work there to address those.
Very good. Any finishing comments. Yes, Councilmember Gettle.
Yeah, there's another part of our committee process I think needs to be fine-tuned, and that is the mechanism for this committee to be able to advise council and to report back to council. And so that's been a frustration, and it hasn't been as seamless as I had hoped. And so under the member responsibility, members shall advise the council related to policy matters relevant to the scope of each given committee. What is the mechanism that we vision that taking? How does this happen?
Good question.
Is this a presentation during council meeting? Is this the futures planning presentation? What does that report and
City
advice
manager?
might look like?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Councilmember Gettle, I think the intent is that is the purpose of the council liaison being in that role, is that then, for example, in the call to the council during a regular meeting or as you're providing your council reports, that can be something that comes back. It also could be something that is placed on an agenda if it's something for action. These types of committees are different than, for example, our planning and zoning committee that has a statutory and a codified purpose where they are a necessary recommending board to the council. These types of committees are more meant to be at the convenience of the council that serves in that advisory role. And so as a council member liaison, as a vice liaison or whatever the assistant is, those would be kind of the responsibilities of those council members to bring back those reports, make the recommended suggestions in tandem now with staff and going through those processes.
I think there's really interesting things that happen in those meetings that I would love to know, so I would love to.
There are. And so I would recommend to our council that we consider making this a formal process and inviting our committees to participate, not just in a call to the public, but to actually be agendized at least once a year where they can come and give us a report. Like you mentioned, Mayor, they've worked hard, and I'm really proud of a lot of the things that they've accomplished. Let's give them an opportunity to share that success with council and with our public, and also to advise us specifically on some of those things. Maybe it's about those recreational partnerships, or whatever the topic is of the day, but having a formal mechanism for them to be able to present and to have a dialogue so that it's agendized, I think is an important part of this process.
So you see that possibly happening in November, December at a council meeting where it has an agenda item and they give a report of the year. Because during the futures meeting is when we'll understand their goals for the coming year. So you would like to hear a report at the end of the year by the committee?
Or just prior to the futures planning meeting to close that previous year out.
Yeah.
Or as needed, as something pops up during the year.
Or as needed, yeah.
Or as needed.
Agreed.
Council, how do you feel about that? Councilmember Noor?
I think it's really important that the council hears from the committees at least once a year about what they are doing and what they are accomplishing, and if they have concerns, et cetera. They really are taking on a lot. I mean, I'm involved with cultural arts and affairs, and they do the art exhibit, the library. It's a lot of work, just that, and they do other things too. And so I think it's important for us to, and I think we're going to utilize them more with this new change, and so I think it's going to be even more important.
I agree. Let's talk later. He's making deals with me up here. Okay, so given that, nothing else from council? You answered a lot of my questions. I think a lot of others' questions from the council. Did we leave anything unanswered that the public would like to say? Peg, I hear you. Would you like to come forward?
Thank you, Mayor, council, staff. A lot to unpack. A lot of stuff was covered. I think the easiest way for me to do this is just tell you up front, I'm going to be critical. I heard a lot of great ideas, but that's all I've heard. And a lot of it seems to be coming from the city's perspective. I think if you're going to use your committees, it starts with the 7 of you. What do you see as our value? What can we contribute? You have an awful lot of citizens here that want to get involved in local government. It's also my understanding that over the years, we've thought of our committees as our recruiting base. Folks that need to take up these seats or fill other committee vacancies, apply for a job at the city, and that's actually happened where you've had people serving in different capacities that now work for the city of Maricopa. So I think that's the first question. I think the next issue becomes down to an issue of trust. We trust you that if you win our votes, you're our voices up there. You're the ones that set the policy. You're the ones that ask the hard questions. You're the ones that do the deep dive. I can't tell you how thrilled I was when the mayor announced a work session. I haven't seen one of those in ages, and I miss them. Having served on both sides of this podium, I know the importance of what you guys are trying to do. I understand the importance of what staff does on running a city on a day-to-day basis. But I think there's a lot of people, and sometimes it's a misperception, sometimes it's dead on. There's a disconnect. And the disconnect happens when I don't hear what you think, what you expect, what you want, or what you think I want or expect. One of the things that I found missing in some of the comments that were made tonight is responding to the needs of your citizens. We are still only a 23-year-old city. We have a lot of needs and a lot of wants. We have tons of challenges. We have people that come from other places that have all these things that we don't. We have people that come with fresh ideas, inventive ideas, connections to entrepreneurial world, connections to funding, connections to other entities that can help us bring these things. I think it's important that we ask them as a community, what do you want and need? Now, it's not going to be the be-all, end-all. We used to do a citizen attitude survey every 2 years. I found the results of those surveys very, very interesting. You have to look at a lot of different factors when you're doing that, but just the fact that you have people that are willing to come to the microphone, willing to speak up, sometimes it's misperceptions, sometimes it's not accurate information, but I think that's an important quality that the city has. Over the years, the one thing that's been consistent is what is one of our greatest assets, and it's always been our people. I think if we start to downplay that or redirect it or take it for granted, we're going to be on a slippery slope that's not going to end well. In terms of the committee approach, I love the fact that you guys are being proactive. I want to particularly thank Councilmember Gettle for the committee reboot that he started a couple years ago right after he got appointed. Also Councilmember Noor, she's been very, very good as an advocate, and her experience on the school board I think is carried over very well here. All of you do a good job. But your committees are something that I've felt over the years, and this is not new. You've heard me talk about this when I was on council. You've got to give us clear direction. You've got to give us some goals. It shouldn't all come from us. It should be a collaboration. I've heard that word a lot tonight, and I think that's one of the things that's missing. The other factor is we need to tell you what we're working on, because we need to feel that we're providing a service and providing value to you, and I think you need to hear that as well, especially around election time. We do have the public's ear. We get asked a ton of questions. We are always trying to defend our roles and our council and our staff and our city in terms of why can't the city do? Why doesn't the city have? Why can't the city spend money on this? There's a number of different reasons. I think the Citizens Leadership Academy needs to be expanded beyond 4 weeks. When I took the first one, Vice Mayor was there with me. Nancy, you were there with me. It was 8 weeks, and we did a deep dive. We don't do that anymore. The fact that the city clerk's department isn't even included in that, to me, is very telling. Almost everybody in the city at one point or another will interface with the city clerk's office. Going back to the committees, the reporting and our goals is important for a thing that's been missing, but I know you guys have been talking about it: budget, recognition. You ask if we could use the city resources to let people know there's vacancies on the committees. How about we let the community know we have committees? There's a number of people that we deal with, and most recently was Copa Cultural. We had tents there. We had our Copa Cultural Affairs and Arts Committee there doing a survey. A lot of people came up and said, I didn't even know we had a committee on the arts and culture. I didn't know we had a senior advisory committee. I didn't know we had Parks and Rec. We've been asking for brochures. We've been asking for additional marketing. We've been asking for city support. we've been met with either frustration or we can't do that right now, or just a plain no. If it's that important, then let's tell the people about it. If it's a recruiting tool, then let's maximize the efficiency of it. The other aspect is we need money. We were told as the Culture Affairs and Arts Committee that if you want to do a reception for the artists, which we did, you need to go out and get your own sponsorship, which we did. Several of you were there. But your committees need your support, not only lip service, but we need other resources. We need assistance from the Community Enrichment Department in marketing and promoting our activities and our endeavors. I think the best problem we can have is an overflow of people that come to our committee meetings that want to hear what we're doing on their behalf that we then report to you, and then you take appropriate action on it. There's a lot of things that I'm encouraged by tonight. There's some things that I still find very frustrating. I hope you will continue this dialogue, but I'm going to suggest another thing. Every committee meeting is responsible within 3 business days to report our actions to our, right now it's our staff liaison, and then that goes and gets published on the city website. I suggest that we send you those action items as well. If you can't be at that meeting, at least you get an idea of what is being accomplished at these committee meetings. The other thing, and this was something I advocated for very strongly, we need to train them every year on open meeting law, on procedures, on budget, on how things work. If we're going to be an extension of you guys, and we're going to talk to the constituents and answer some of the tough questions, we need to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we understand how this process works. The city clerk started a very, very robust training program once a year that was mandatory for committee members to attend. Then it got morphed a little bit, and she actually just came to a committee meeting and did the same thing. That information is invaluable. If somebody, especially new to the Arizona, new to open meeting law, they don't understand how that works, that is vital information for them to have. And it's a good refresher for the rest of us to hear. Okay? The other thing is we need to collaborate in the truest sense of the word. So people all the time ask me, well, how does council arrive at this decision, or why did council do that? There is absolutely nothing that precludes any one of us from emailing anyone or all of you. I think those lines of communication, which has always been a challenge here, is important. That takes me to my next point. We need the council and the staff to maybe relax these policies a little bit about who gets promoted on city websites and how. There's a lot of good information out there, but as you know, if you get 10 people in a room, they'll get their information 20 different ways, and it's not always accurate. So let's use the resources that we have and put the burden on the committees. We've asked a number of times, if we give you this, will you put it in the city newsletter? If we have room, if we have time, if we don't have to retweak it and rewrite it. Are we getting in the way of ourselves sometimes with this? If we've got good information, we understand the policies from the get-go, and we've got a staff liaison and a council liaison there, this should be a no-brainer. Okay? I will leave you with 2 words that started the 2024 Futures Planning Session. I'm going to hold myself and all of you to it. Expect more. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would like to add on to that, maybe a little bit of a different perspective, because we are here today because we saw, all of council saw an opportunity for a lot of change. We're here today to talk about partnerships because we saw the need. We're here today because we're talking about a framework of understanding how private organizations can carry a load where they're experts. We're here today because we saw issues with committees. So I'm willing to earn the trust because I'm part of this council that actually made this day happen, that made the communication with our staff, who I think have done a wonderful job tonight in terms of communicating what our vision has been and bringing it to fruition with these changes in our policy or our framework. I am very proud of them, and that came about because of the fact that council saw a need for change, and we communicated the change, and staff reacted wonderfully. You have some great suggestions, and it's videotaped, so we can go look at some of those suggestions. I think it's great, but I do not want to leave this room without an understanding of how we saw the need for change about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we all worked hard to work with our staff, with our new city manager, with everyone to ensure that the vision needed to be corrected. So I appreciate your comments, but I wanted to add that because we're here tonight because of the need for change. Would anyone else like to speak? Perfect. Yes, Priscilla.
Sorry, there
Oh,
was a
she's
cute
gonna
dress
dance again?
on my shopping site. No, I'm just kidding. Good evening, council and mayor. I did have a suggestion. I like that you guys are focusing on teens, but I would highly suggest that you say youth, because tweens always get left out. And if you don't make those relationships with those tweens, you're going to be that much harder to get the teens. And, you know, youth of all ages and all developmental stages are important. So I would say youth. All right. That was my
Excellent.
suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point. Anybody else? Quinn, do you have closing comments?
I hope that in the totality of what was presented tonight, it becomes a little bit more clear that idea of, again, expansion and enrichment. Some of those big pieces off the beginning are certainly going to require a lot of thoughtful consideration and conversation. And I love what Councilmember Gettle said, baby steps. We don't want to be here again in a couple of years saying, wow, we've really overextended. So we want to take those steps, report back to you of this is the success we're having, these are the adjustments we're making. And that's why we've called it a framework. It's something to guide us.
Very good. City manager, any closing comments?
Quinn, do you want just to advance the slide to the end there and discuss that?
Yes. So another piece of the puzzle of making sure things are allocated appropriately, fairly, taking into consideration that the offerings of one might not be the same as other, what they bring to the table. In a future work session that we'll be doing, we'll be looking to talk about our facility rental fees, exploring that, giving some feedback and data, where we compare to other cities, and as well as that field allocation that we discussed with Councilmember Knorr. How do we create something as opposed to having to create individual agreements with every single group, which is always still an option, but say how can we create a framework that is easily applied to those who fit into certain tiers are things that we're excited to present in the future and excited to invite the public to come and hear and participate in.
So I have one additional comment that I was just glancing at my notes as Ms. Chapados was talking regarding budget. I know that you were at futures planning, but I think you had to leave. Part of my proposal on committees was that they needed to have a budget for things like art receptions. Currently, the Senior Advisory Committee doesn't specifically have a budget for things they need for the Senior Info Expo, but there is a budget, and it might be created because there are sponsorships. So, but anyway, the concept of budgets and the need for various things, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about the fact that we would talk about that during the budget. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So I agree wholeheartedly. All right. Anything else?
Madam Mayor, if I may, just real
Yes.
quickly, I think that, you know, this is a process, as you and some of the public have mentioned, has been a couple years in the making. I think that this is kind of challenging the status quo. I don't know that there's another community that has a policy like this anywhere, or a framework like this anywhere that kind of says, hey, you know what, we're going to be committed to effective use of taxpayer dollars, and we're going to do that in these set ways. And is it perfect? No, it won't be. And tomorrow it'll change, and the next day we'll need to make adjustments to that. But I think that as we look at these strategies and talk about framework, talk about partnerships, collaborations, and working with our committees, it is the goal of our organization to commit to constantly reassessing and constantly improving the offerings that we provide. It's not looking backwards and taking steps backwards, it's looking forwards and taking steps forward. And I think ultimately that's the goal of the three discussions we had tonight and the many more that we'll have in the future. It's how do we get better and how do we improve and provide better services to our community.
It's important. Appreciate it. All right. At that point, that concludes our meeting tonight. Thank you all for attending.